Welcome to another episode of Let's Address This with Qasim Rashid. Staying with my promise of continuing to elevate the right people we need to get elected to the House and the Senate, I'm excited to bring back Angie Nixon, state rep in Florida, running for U.S. Senate in Florida. We've got a lot to talk about because there has been a new map signed into law. And the response from Angie Nixon and her primary opponent, I think, just tells you everything you need to know about why we need to get behind Angie. But Angie, glad to have you back. You're a regular on our program at this point, and I love having you here because of all the great things we're doing. Since we last spoke, you disrupted the vote on the Florida House floor, this vote that was passed in these racist gerrymandered maps. Let's talk about that first.
Yeah, for sure. So, the governor answered Donald Trump's call to rig maps and gerrymander maps in order to get more Republicans seats in our state. And what's really interesting is the governor decided to release these maps to Fox News before he even released it to the House of Representatives and the Florida Senate, right? And so it's really frustrating because he also did this 4 years ago, back in 2022. I want to be clear. This is not even the first time that I actually disrupted House proceedings. I led a peaceful protest and sit-in on the House floor in 2022 when the governor unconstitutionally was drawing maps to remove two Black congressional districts in our state, one of which was in North Florida, where I'm from, and the other was in Central Florida. And so fast forward to now, he did it again. And it's frustrating because not only is he not supposed to draw maps, but that is something that we are supposed to be doing as the state. And then in 2010, we voted as voters to not allow gerrymandering in a partisan fashion. And so this violates our state constitution, and it was illegal.
Are there going to be legal challenges filed? Do we have standing? Is the ACLU getting involved to challenge these states? These are redistricting for the state?
So yeah, there are several folks that have filed a lawsuit recently. Equal Ground is a partner that I've worked with before when I was operating as an executive director of a statewide progressive coalition, and so they filed a lawsuit with the Elias Group and everything. And so
Yep.
yes,
Mark Elias, yep.
there is a legal challenge, and we hope that it turns out the right way. But I mean, right now, the governor has kind of like stacked the courts. And
Mm-hmm.
they have unfortunately sometimes said, oh, it's out of their jurisdiction and what the plaintiff said is right. However, there's nothing they can do. And so we just basically have to remove the leadership at the top.
This is where my frustration gets into play because, when Democrats had the trifecta in Congress under Biden, everything was about, well, there's certain parliamentary proceedings and procedures and filibusters and rules and that we can't really do anything about. And when Republicans take the majority, they're like, yeah, we don't like this amendment of the Constitution. We're just going to rip it out. Yeah, we don't like this law. We're just going to ignore it. And if you don't like it, tough luck. I don't want Democrats to break the law. I want them to fight. I want them to be fighters. And that's where I'm so excited about your candidacy because you are fighting. Your primary opponent is a transplant to Florida. He moved down just to run, Alexander Binman. And I give him kudos for what he did to stand up to Trump, but that does not a good senator make. And as far as I can tell, he has made no meaningful opposition to this racist gerrymandering. He has made no meaningful opposition to these new redistricting. And to me, that is an extraordinarily racist act. And the reason why I call it a racist act is because who does this harm the most? Black people, Black women in particular, the base of the party. If the base of your party is being thrown under the bus and you can't speak out loudly against it, what message are you sending? It's not a good one. It's not really a question, but just wanted to get your thoughts on the impact this is having on Democratic voters, on Black voters, and what we should be doing to kind of respond to it.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel that any candidate in office right now needs to be speaking out and fighting back against all the attacks that our communities are facing right now. And if we have someone that is already kind of towing the line and being quiet because they're worried about poll numbers or whatever, that is not who we need to be in leadership. That is not a sign of a good leader. That is the sign of a politician who just moves whichever way the wind blows. We need someone with the right moral clarity and the right values standing up for people. I also looked at a statement that came out in regards to the Spirit Airlines closure, and my opponent only blamed Joe Biden. He didn't call out Donald Trump. He said it was a
Wow.
failure of Joe Biden, and I was just like, I mean, Donald Trump sent us to a war that no one asked for, that is driving up everyone's cost of living here in this country. And we have to be able to call that out. We can't be afraid to not say anything because we're worried about MAGA attacking us or whatever. Like, they're already attacking us. Our democracy is falling, like, our country is falling. And we need leaders who are going to stand up and speak out.
I did not realize that Alexander Vindman attacked Joe Biden for Spirit Airlines closing. Does Vindman realize that Joe Biden is no longer president? Is he aware of that fact? Does he realize that Pete Buttigieg is no longer the Secretary of Transportation? I mean, this
Right.
is absurd to me. And look, anyone who's followed my advocacy knows I'm not shy about being critical of Joe Biden. But if Alexander Vindman can be silent on Biden funding Netanyahu to commit genocide, but then speaks up because Trump got Spirit Airlines shut down, that is just insane to me. That
Yeah.
is a man who is so desperate to follow what he thinks the polls are saying that he's lost any kind of moral compass whatsoever. You know, I always say there's two kinds of people running for office: the poll-tested ones and the door-tested ones. I guarantee you he hasn't knocked more than a couple of doors in his life, and I guarantee you've knocked tens of thousands of doors. And that's why you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening right now. I'll also point out, just to air it out there, Alexander's brother Eugene is a congressman in Virginia. And if you look at the map of where he lands, most people don't realize this. He won a progressive district by being the only staunch, moderate, conservative Democrat running, and the progressives couldn't figure it out, and he barely won because they all canceled each other out, and he got like 51% of the vote. The crazy part is this, that if you look at where his voting record has been, he has voted more conservatively than about 80 Republicans in Congress. And so we're seeing from his brother Alexander now the exact same persona. So if you want a corporate right-wing Democrat that will blame Joe Biden before he holds Donald Trump accountable for waging an illegal war, that's your guy. But my view is if you want a fighter who's been in Florida, who's been in the fight, gun violence prevention, economic justice, housing access, you're sitting in a literal bookstore right now that you run called the, what's the name of the bookstore you're running?
Cafe Resistance Bookstore.
Cafe Resistance. I was going to call it Resistance Project, but Cafe Resistance. Angie, you're the person that folks need. Talk about how your campaign is going as we're getting closer and closer to the primary election day.
Yeah, for sure. So we are starting to gain momentum and traction, and we are out and about. We are starting our second wave, our launch of our statewide tour on next week. So I get to go see, I mean, I'm already going to see more people, but now it's like we're kicking it up an even larger notch. And so I'm super excited to start talking to more folks. We have some organizers on the ground. We're already out knocking doors and making phone calls, and we're starting to raise some money. Of course, we need to raise a lot more money just to make sure that we are getting our name out there. I don't have celebrity friends to send out text messages and to make pitches to ask for their support. I only have Floridians and just, everyday people to ask for my support. And so I need help. I need all hands on deck. I need folks to share my information, let people know that I'm in this race. If there are other podcasters and influencers similar to you,
Yeah.
if they could reach out, I would love to come on and talk about my actual platform and vision. And I would like to say that I am the only candidate in the Democratic primary that has an actual platform that is public for folks to know. And so, yeah.
I need folks to understand, just to double down the beautiful remarks Angie just made. We talk a lot about listening to the Democratic Party base. Angie is the Democratic Party base. Black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party. Always have always been the most loyal supporters of the party, even when they had zero representation. 93% of Black women voted for Harris in the 2024 election. No other demographic came even close to that. And now we have an opportunity to send a Black woman to the US Senate, but it starts right now. We cannot fall back on who's the electable white male centrist. That's nonsense. It's failed every single time. It's going to fail this time. And so if you're watching this and you want to get involved, please do reach out because her team is extraordinarily responsive. Angie, as you're going across the state, what are like some of the top, one or two things that you're hearing most often?
Yeah, number one is just people can't afford to be alive anymore in our state. There are Folks are suffering. I spoke with someone who had a stroke because they've been so stressed out about paying bills and worried about whether or not their job is going to shut down with very little notice. And so they suffered from a stroke. And like that is reverberating like all across the state. People just don't know how they're going to make ends meet. And so they're worried about this affordability issue. And also, like, gas is almost $5 here in the state of Florida. That's unheard of.
It's past
And
$5 here in Illinois. It's already past $5 here in Illinois.
wow, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, actually, it was five. The other night in Palm Bay, I saw that it was five, around five there, and I just people can't. It's unsustainable. And then the other thing is healthcare. We have the largest amount of recipients of the ACA marketplace and the enrollee, and so medical debt is the leading cause of bankruptcy. People are literally
Mhm.
going bankrupt just to stay alive. And so Ashley Moody not extending the ACA subsidies, not voting to extend the ACA subsidies is a problem. And so I again am the only candidate in the primary and the general that is openly supported and publicly stated that I am for Medicare for all. And so we need to make sure that we are electing people who are going to fight tooth and nail for actually everyday people. And I am the candidate that will fit them all.
And the two are connected, right? Affordability and healthcare are connected because
Yes,
one, with our current model, we're spending double per capita of every developed country in the world on healthcare. So whatever you think Medicare for all will cost, for the critics out there, whatever you think it's going to cost, it's half of what we're spending right now.
exactly.
And you need to understand that the extra money is not going to give you better care. It's going to give these pharma executives, these big health executives, another mansion, another private jet.
Exactly.
That's the part people don't seem to understand. And the second thing is that it's a term that I've been developing. I can't remember where I read it. I don't want to take credit for it, but I've been developing some articles around it called structural eugenics. Because when you
Mhm.
deny healthcare, you are hurting the elderly, the disabled, the low income, and Black and brown people who historically have less access to healthcare. It's called structural eugenics for a reason, because when you, like someone like Ashley Moody, votes to not extend the ACA subsidies, that's not hurting the rich people. It's not hurting the people who have nice healthcare through a Cadillac plan by working for Goldman Sachs. It's working for the ordinary folks who are working, a basic 9 to 5 or a basic retail job. And I think putting it in that perspective, it's no surprise to me that people are talking about healthcare and affordability as the top two crises.
Right.
We're in the home. Remind me, when is the primary for
The
this election again?
primary is August 18th.
Okay, so we're only about 3 months away,
Yeah,
just over three
three
months away. So we're
months.
coming down to the final 100-day sprint. What are you hearing in terms of the main complaints about Ashley Moody? I mean, I know we talked about your primary opponent and how he's basically another Republican, but in terms of Ashley Moody, what are the main complaints that folks are
I mean,
basically
it's the
about her?
same thing that same thing. They're not coming into the community and having conversations with people. She's not responsive to the needs. And then she's also just rubber stamping everything that Donald Trump wants. People don't know who she is. We don't see her. We don't hear from her. Now we're hearing more, and that's simply because she's running for office. But other than that, that's the main thing. Again, she failed to extend the ACA, to vote to extend the ACA subsidies. She is one piece of legislation that she pushed was the Halo bill, which was supportive of law enforcement officers and keeping citizens from being like within 50 feet of them if they are arresting someone or something like that. And the issue that I have with that is just, George Floyd, right? Like we
Yes.
may not have been able to see that. And so
Yes.
those are the types of bills and legislation that she's pushing, and she's not really pushing things that would positively impact us and our quality of life.
This is what kills me about these MAGA Republicans. They will preach till they are blue in the face
Mhm.
about, we want smaller government and we oppose tyranny. And then we're like, yeah, so let's make sure we can hold law enforcement accountable. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's not get crazy here. What do you think law enforcement is? It's the lethal arm of the state to kill you if you don't comply. Like, how is that not tyranny? I don't know how they make that decision. And the reason why they don't make that connection is because they don't expect law enforcement to hold them accountable. They expect law enforcement to hold anyone threatening the status quo accountable. So someone like you or me or any other non-rich white male person comes in that challenges their status quo, and suddenly that's where again, where does law enforcement descend from?
I
As they
mean,
don't. slave patrols, right? I
slave
mean, yeah,
catching,
slave patrols.
slave patrols, all the things. So yeah,
And I mean, and I think that's where when you see her passing this kind of legislation to make it even more difficult to hold law enforcement accountable, that should set up a red flag. And I point out, this to me is not a red versus blue issue. I've got conservative friends in rural parts of the country that don't like police for this reason, because like, why am I going to have to submit under a lethal threat? I'm like, exactly. Now apply that to every aspect of your life. And that's what Black and brown people are going through on a daily basis. And it kind of clicks in. And so I say to even folks on the right that you have to understand, it's not these culture wars. That's not what we got to fight. We got to fight the class war of these super wealthy billionaires trying to come after us. We got a few minutes
exactly.
left. I want to close out by talking a little bit about data centers. I'm sure you saw this story out of Utah. Billionaire from Canada, Kevin O'Leary, is building like a 40,000 acre plot in a county in Utah that voted 77% for Trump, by the way, to build a data center that's going to consume twice the energy of the entire state of Utah. And it's just mind boggling to me how people don't realize that, look, you guys voted for Trump 3-1, and you're still getting screwed the exact same way. Data center has been a thing in Florida. Like, how are you
Yeah,
approaching this?
so
What would be
actually
your
that
next
is
policy?
something that is coming up. So when I make all these different tour stops, and a lot of folks are concerned about data centers because they're trying to build them in low income communities or predominantly communities of color and some of the rural areas. And we are worried about it negatively impacting people's quality of life because it, like you said, it uses massive amounts of energy. And then also, I believe it's like it's a major pollutant. And then it's gonna
Yes,
drive up
it is.
people's energy costs as like it uses a massive amounts of energy. The energy that's left, the cost of it is going to go up. And so that's going to negatively impact people. And so I am supportive of a moratorium on data centers right now until we are able to put strong guardrails and regulations around them to make sure that they aren't detrimental to our quality of life.
The studies show how devastating they are. Aside from the noise pollution and heat pollution and light pollution, the studies show that we can expect by 2030 alone an additional 1,300 premature deaths due to the asthma caused by data centers, and an additional 600,000 cases of asthma that wouldn't have happened. So it is
And
absolutely,
look, that's horrible. And I have a daughter that has asthma and a son that
yeah,
has asthma. And the amount of times that I have had to go to the hospital, the emergency room, or how it
yeah.
has negatively impacted her life, that is something she has to live with forever. And no one should have to live that way. And so, yes, we definitely like, they have no place here really in our country.
Well, you will always have a place on this program, so we can have you back on as much as we can to make sure you get elected. Before you go, can you talk to us about where folks can go to support you, how they can donate to your campaign?
Yeah, for sure. So folks can support me at angienixon.com, and they can follow me on all socials. I'm at Angie4FL, Angie for Florida. As you all see, my bookstore just opened. And so we have a lot of folks that are coming in. So come to the bookstore too if you're in Jacksonville, but angienixon.com. And please, again, just continue to share my information because we actually can build a new vision for our country, one where we no longer just have to survive, but we can actually thrive and flourish. And I'm looking forward to helping lead the way.
I love that. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.
Yes.
Angie Nixon, state rep running for U.S. Senate in Florida. We got to help her win this primary coming up in August. Check her out at angienixon.com. Follow her at Angie Florida across all socials. We will have you back on soon, I promise,
Yeah,
okay?
for sure. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Let's Address This with Qasim Rashid. We'll be back next week with another episode.